Welcome everyone to 3 Count Commentaries. We're going to talk about Smackdown from December the 19th, 2025. But I hate Smackdown more than I hate Sin, so we're going to push that back. Instead, we're going to talk about one specific thing from Smackdown. We're going to poke that out from the show, and then we're going to discuss that in a little bit more detail, and then we'll get into the rest of SmackDown later. And the thing that we want to talk about is actually not really a big thing. We'll be talking about some of the spoilers that were floating around SmackDown too, because it's just absolutely necessary that we talk about that, because there's nothing going to be happening on the next 2 or 3 Raws or next 2 or 3 SmackDowns, all of which are going to be taped. So I'm not even going to waste everybody's time and try to ignore that I don't know the big spoiler from the SmackDown taping. Obviously I do know it, and we'll talk about it later. But I do want to discuss right now Julia. There's been a lot of talk online about Julia not getting any reaction. There's been a whole lot of jokes at her expense. And I came up with one called The Beautiful Silence, because she doesn't get any reaction. And everybody's trying to figure out why. And it's obvious why. It's obvious why she doesn't get a reaction. What does she do? She doesn't do anything. What makes her stand out? Nothing. There's no reason she stands out. Especially, she's a Japanese girl on the same roster with 3 other Japanese girls. I mean, there's nothing that she does that Asuka and Io and Kairi can't do. None of them can speak English, but all of them are more over than Julia. So what's going on with Julia specifically? Well, let's start with part 1. Part 1 is she just got on the roster this year. So nobody really knows who she is. They did do video packages, but for some reason they stopped. She was working matches, but the matches were short, and she was winning those matches. But that was pretty much it. She wasn't given a whole lot of time in NXT. And then her time in NXT was really truncated because they brought in Stephanie Vaquer at the same time. And then they just had Stephanie Vaquer leapfrog her. And then they spent the rest of this time jobbing Julia out. And then they kicked her over to the main roster, where she won the United States Championship pretty quickly. But then immediately got put in a closet. So let's stop right here. Let's not focus too much on Julia, because a lot of people are blaming her for not getting over. And it's partially her fault, because, again, presentation is one thing, in-ring work is another, promo is another. We already know that's a deficit. But presentation is a major part of all of this. The booker could either book you to get over, or they could book you to not get over. And what's happening right now, a lot of this is Triple H is not booking people to get over. He's booking people to be seen. And what I mean by this is there are people who have been on this roster longer than Julia, who are better promos than Julia, who have been over at some points more than Julia has, and they have been diminishing over time. People on this very roster, people like Damian Priest, for instance. Not even a year ago, Damian Priest was a main event wrestler on this roster, right? He was cutting promos all the time. Now, does Damian Priest get like the loudest, most vociferous reactions? No. What's happening? Is it just Damian Priest sucks? Well, that's possible. Or is Damian Priest in a black hole where he doesn't show up every week? He doesn't do anything. He's just constantly in a Tom and Jerry feud with Aleister Black. That's what's happening. That's why he doesn't get a reaction. Because people are tired of seeing this guy, and there's nothing coming from it. It's going nowhere. He's not exciting. He's not interesting. And this is a guy who's been on this roster since 2018. So it's not just, oh, he's new. No, it is a guy who speaks English. Perfect English. So it's not, well, he can't speak the language. It's not even that he's a bad wrestler. It's simply, when you look at the booking of the performers, these bookers are ruining the show. So Julia can only do so much out in the ring to try to get over. She needs a lot of time, but we're going to talk about that too. So the booking is a big part of the problem. The booking has taken people who are over, like AJ Styles, and they'll, diminish them. And then they'll give a whole lot of time to people who are not over, like DIY, and bore the audience to death. They get tons of time, but there's nothing there. Now, a more of a Julia-centered issue is her performance. Now, when it comes to performance, one thing that you need to realize is that the audience is part of the show in the United States. She's from Japan. In Japan, the audience is rarely considered part of the show. They're just spectators. They're there watching the show. The stories between you and your opponent, the audience doesn't really factor in. In the United States, the audience is just as important as interacting with the audience is actually more important than interacting with your opponent. In parts of Mexico is the same way. But if you doubt me, ask yourself why somebody like Hulk Hogan was more over when he didn't have any moves, right? He wouldn't do anything. He would just play to the audience. He'd pose, he'd do the ear thing, let the crowd make noise. You know, Steve Austin would do that too. He'd do the stomps in the corner, then he'd motion to the audience so the audience can respond. All these sorts of things that gets the audience into the match. A great example of this is the counterpart to Julia, who was brought in at the same time, Stephanie Vaquer, because she doesn't get a big response either. I know a lot of people pick on Julia, but Stephanie Vaquer is not over either. Not really. The only thing that is over when it comes to Stephanie Vaquer is the Devil's Kiss. Now, why is the Devil's Kiss over? Because she's showing her ass. Well, that's part of it. The other part is Booker T got it over. Booker T in NXT making that move, he got it over. Now it's the most over thing that she does. And now she's got something to play with the audience with. Okay? She can, the crowd is calling for it. She motions, she's going to go for it. The opponent escapes. Boo. She maybe tries it again. Opponent escapes again. Boo. And then she finally gets it. The audience is happy. Then they may chant one more time and she tries to go for it again or whatever. There's something there for the audience to interact with. There's something that they like. They don't make that a whole lot of noise for her entrance or anything like that. And I know there's been a whole lot of talk about Vince Russo making these comments about Stephanie Vaquer. I know that. But Stephanie Vaquer, Julia, all of them are in the same boat. They don't speak English. English is a second language, maybe even a third language. But that's not important. What's important is that they cannot and do not interact with the audience. They're not in storylines and they don't interact with the audience. Stephanie Vaquer does interact with the audience. That's why she's more over and she has at least one move where the crowd wants to see that move and will interact with that move. Now, going back to the Japanese point, Raven, I believe in one of his shoot interviews, I believe he was talking about, I think it was one of those shoot interviews he did with Ring of Honor or something like that, where he talked about not liking to work with Chris Benoit. Two reasons he didn't like working with Chris Benoit is, one, he didn't like being chopped. Two, he said Benoit doesn't ever slow down. He just works harder because Benoit was scared of silence. So he wanted to get the match over. And he said, in Benoit's brain, I have to do more to get the match over. In Raven's brain, he said you need to interact with the audience more. That will get the match over. The difference is Benoit was watching Dynamite Kid and he loved Japanese wrestling and they didn't interact with the audience. Meanwhile, Raven grew up watching Jerry Lawler, a guy who, had all this sort of deep connection with the Memphis audience, and he knew how to play off of that audience. He knew how to talk them into the building. He knew when to let the strap down and now to get the audience all riled up. You didn't need to chop people 100 times to get people into the match if you've got that connection with them. And that made perfect sense. That's an exegesis of what's going on here. In terms of, there are certain performers that they are so focused on the match or what they need to do in the match that they forget that the crowd is watching. And this is why Benoit got labeled as sort of a moves guy, Not only because he had a whole lot of moves, but because Benoit liked to focus on his opponent, focus on his spots and what he needed to do in his match, and not really open himself up to the audience. Meanwhile, compare him to Eddie Guerrero. When Eddie Guerrero really started getting over, it wasn't like Eddie turned out and started doing more moves. What Eddie started doing was playing with the audience. doing little tricks that the referee can't see, but the audience can, and he knows the audience is watching, and he's playing with the audience, and now the audience is more over. He can do less and get more over because he's playing with the audience. His opponent is irrelevant. It doesn't matter whether his opponent is The Rock or Rhino. The important connection is between Eddie and the audience. When you realize that about pro wrestling, that is the secret sauce to pro wrestling. It doesn't matter who you put Hulk Hogan in the ring with. Hulk Hogan's magic is with the audience. It's not with his chemistry with a singular opponent. Who gives a shit about what? You could put the Barbarian over there. You could put Randy Savage over there. Hulk Hogan is going to have a Hulk Hogan match. And a Hulk Hogan match is pretty much going to be structured the exact same way. Okay? Depending on his opponent. Now, his opponent may get more offense in. They may get better spots in. They may be technically better bumpers or sellers or whatever the case may be. But Hogan's connection with the audience is what carries Hogan through matches. Same thing with The Rock. Same thing with Steve Austin. Same thing with Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. These guys, and some of these guys like Shawn Michaels, had quite a few moves. But they still knew how to play with the audience. How to get the audience involved. Julia doesn't do that. Now, is it her fault? Partially. It's a lot of it is training. WWE fast-tracked her from Japan, rocketed her through NXT without stopping and saying, this is how you get over in this country. And Io and Asuka have both done interviews, and I think we've covered at least Asuka's interview on this channel about how hard it is for Japanese workers to get over in the United States. Because the presentation is so different. What you're taught to do in Japan is to vary your moveset. Oh, you're boring. The people don't really like you. Find some different way to work. All right. And usually that helps. But in America, if you have more of a personality, they don't really care about your moveset. People care about your personality. They want to interact with you. They want to like you. That's what it boils down to. And this is why storylines are so important. A storyline helps the people to like or not like you. If you're a heel, your storyline is to get people to not like you. And there's a way to do that. If you're a babyface, the point is to get people to like you. And there's ways to do that. So when she worked this match against Alba Fire, for starters, she's working with Alba Fire, who has no legitimacy whatsoever. Secondly, she doesn't interact with the crowd. Third, this is like the fourth or fifth match she's had with Alba Fire. There's no interaction with Chelsea Green. There's no interaction with the audience. There's nothing. There's no reason for you to care about Julia being out there. And then, to top it all off, she's not given a whole lot of time. So when the bookers and the promoters and the producers, etc., are teaching you this is not important, then you learn this is not important. Right? So this is the problem. A lot of people want to blame Julia. Oh, she sucks. She needs to go back to NXT. Maybe she does need to go back to NXT. But a lot of this is on the booking. She could develop something that could work if she was given time. If she was taken off TV so that she could be repackaged, that would make sense. But they're not doing that. They're bringing her back the exact same every time in the same story every time with no development to these stories. She's been chasing Chelsea Green for like a month, but they've only had like 3 segments together. I mean, it is what it is. You can't expect anybody to get over if they're not being seen. Okay? It's just a matter of people respond to the level of the push. But if you give them the push and then they don't get the response, a lot of that might be on the performer. But she's not getting the time, nor does she have the performance. So it's a combination of things. And I think that people blaming her just want to scapegoat her and be like, oh, Triple H doing his best. No, he's not. No, he's not. Because he's under pushing Jade Cargill as well. I mean, he's under pushing Damian Priest. He's under pushing Aleister Black. And by under pushing, I mean they're featured, they're on the show, but nothing they do really has an impact to it. And now he's doing the same thing with Cody and Drew. This is supposed to be like this huge segment between Cody and Drew. It ends up in just another Cody and Drew match for the title. And ultimately, people are bored by this sort of thing. Nobody believes Drew can win because Drew hasn't beaten anybody. Drew hasn't done anything. He hasn't done anything in months. He was in War Games, man. Don't you know that? Come on. Brock Lesnar was in War Games. Should he get a title shot because he was in War Games? Well, he should have. None of this stuff matters. When you look at the Wyatts and the MFTs, they main evented this show. All right? People don't really care about these groups. Now, the MFTs, they're just a boring group of guys. They're very boring guys. Solo is funny, though. Solo can be silly. I call him Drewski, because that's who he reminds me of. He could be a very funny guy. But they're trying to force him to be the sort of mob boss type of character, and it's not really fitting him. The Wyatts are a cover band, and nobody really cares about it. Dexter Lumis is in his mid-40s, and Joe Gacy, I'm surprised he's still around. So that stuff it's not really moving anybody. Nobody's going to be like, oh, I miss SmackDown. I miss the MFTs versus the Wyatt family. No, nobody cares about these people. Why are we sitting through 2 hours of this shit? I don't want to see this shit. Oh, and disqualification too. Oh, great. So not only is it something I don't want to see, but it's something I don't want to see with an unsatisfying finish. But we blame the performers for not getting over. Look, I can talk about it's a mixture of the two. Jeff Cobb is fat. He's been hanging out in Japan for ages. He doesn't talk. He doesn't do anything. Oh, he's a fat guy who can do a standing moonsault. Who gives a shit? I don't give a damn about that. That doesn't mean anything to me. Tonga Loa is one of the worst wrestlers in the world. Why would I want to put him in the main event? And like I said earlier, Joe Gacy's been around since 2021. I was shocked that he was still there. I thought for sure they was going to put him on the chopping block. He's still there. Kudos to him for getting those paychecks. And Dexter Lumis, who, my lord, he's got to be almost 50 at this point. Well, he's at least 43 or something, right? Because I know he was one of the much older talents in NXT. And these guys only wrestle like once every couple of months. And I know they're going to wrestle again on the AAA show coming up, I think tonight, actually, Saturday night. So I think they're going to wrestle again pretty quickly after. They're working so hard now. It's super hard. But that's not important. What's important is nobody's really interested in the Wyatt Six because what is their storyline? The storyline with the MFTs is all about family. But come on. It seems like we've been a hamster on a wheel this entire time. There's been no growth in this storyline except for Solo's an abuser and he's a bad family man and he mistreats his family. Okay, we could have done that within the first couple of weeks. And then we could have shown Solo Sikoa being abusive to his family, like when he was abusive to Jacob Fatu, or he could be abusing the Tongans or somebody like that, running them down or something. No, we don't get anything like that. They just sit in a dark room and talk, and then they go and lose to somebody else, and then this feud continues, and the Wyatts pop back up every once in a while after, somebody has a hangnail, so they have to take a month off. It's ridiculous. Nobody's going to get into this stuff. And the crowd likes brawls, so they're always going to respond to the brawl. When the giant guy jumps off the top rope with a cross body, they're going to respond to that because they don't see that shit every day. But for the most part, who gives a shit? Who cares, really? We're talking about not just the people in the building, but the people watching on TV. There needs to be more emphasis, more impact on some of these storylines, and you're just not getting anything out of these storylines. These shows are terrible. They're terrible, terrible, terrible shows. SmackDown is an awful show. They had the Kabuki Warriors versus Nia Jax and Lash Legend. Lash Legend doesn't get a reaction either. Want to know why? Same reason Julia doesn't get a reaction. She was brought onto this show. They changed her theme song immediately. So if you even recognize her theme song from NXT, which I don't see why you would have, it's changed. She doesn't interact with the crowd. She barely does anything. She doesn't really talk. How are people supposed to get over? Well, she's mixing it up with Asuka and Nia Jax. So, them people who've been around for a while, they should get you over through osmosis, apparently. No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way at all. So look, Hulk Hogan worked with Billy Kidman. Did he get Kidman over? All the marks thought it would have. Because they think in wrestling, if you put somebody over, all of a sudden they're going to be a superstar. Well, Hogan disproved that. It just embarrassed Hulk Hogan to lose to Billy Kidman. It didn't really help Billy Kidman at all. And Hogan knew that. That's why he agreed to do it. And when you look at these shows, you can see they're not booking these shows to make anybody better. They're booking these shows are just content. They're just stuff that happens. You got Charlotte on this show, right? You got Alexa Bliss on this show. They don't really do much of anything. They're in a tag team. They do backstage segments 99% of the time. They did a run in here just to run off Nia Jax and Lash Legend. Okay, and that was it. You didn't see them for the rest of the show. That was their part of the show. That was it. What's the point of having these people? Cody Rhodes comes out, I am the law. I'm QB1. I am the law. And yelling at Nick Aldis. Nick Aldis standing there with his hands in his pockets, whistling and kicking rocks. Who is this supposed to help? Aldis is an idiot, apparently. He went all the way to Drew McIntyre's house to negotiate this deal. All he wanted was an apology, and he's going to fine him because we really need to know that Drew McIntyre was going to get fined, for Christ's sake. And then Drew gets attacked by Cody. They fight on the lawn, yada, yada, yada. And now Nick Aldis is like, because of you, I had to make this terrible deal. No, you was making the deal before Cody showed up at the guy's house. Now, only this generation of people, wrestlers, can take somebody going to somebody's house and make it boring, right? Like, I have never thought of a time where a guy went to another guy's house and it was so tame as this Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre thing. They rolled around on the grass. That's what they did. When was the last time somebody went to somebody's house? I think, what is it? Hangman and Swerve, and they burnt the guy's house down. Before that, they terrorized the man's baby when he went to his house. And then when you had Randy Orton got thrown through a window, Steve Austin got a gun pulled on him. Like, those are the kinds of things I would expect when you go to somebody's house. You bust a window, you go through a glass table, you knock pictures off the wall or something. Not you roll around on the grass. You roll around on his lawn. Oh, I forgot they did a house pop-up for LA Knight and AJ Styles too. I don't remember anything specifically like exciting happening during that either. But like, what's the point of showing up at somebody's house and it not having a certain level of excitement to it? Like, there's supposed to be some tension there. I'm not saying people need to have guns put on them or, anything like that. But at least somebody should be thrown in a pool, like something. Like a kid should be coming around like, and run away or something. Like, something should happen. No, we just rolling around on the grass. Okay, great. You rolled around on the grass and you poked them in the eye with your thumbs. Good. You really did a good thing there. I'm so excited for this 5th match in this feud. And this Cody Rhodes feud has been terrible. The Kevin Owens feud before his neck injury, it was boring as shit. Not just because, and at least at that time, I don't like Kevin Owens, so that was my excuse. But I like Drew McIntyre. They're making Drew McIntyre boring. They're making him uninteresting. They want him to whine and cry because they think that's what's going to get him over. But Drew McIntyre is a fucking monster. He's a monster. Why would you take a guy like Drew McIntyre and book him as if he was somebody half of Drew McIntyre's size? I've been saying that for weeks and weeks. If anything, Drew should be the guy, much like almost kind of like a Brock Lesnar, because he's big and jacked. He should be beating the shit out of anybody who comes within arm's length of him. That's what should happen. The the bumping, running away heel. Maybe if the guy was bigger than him, maybe to a guy like Obafemi, you're trying to get him over. Sure, you'll have Drew cower and run away from Obafemi. All right, fine. He'll cower and run away from Brock. All right, fine. But from Cody, Cody should have to do something to Drew to get Drew to run away. I mean, hit him in the knee with a pipe, which I always say. Poking him in the eye with something special, like an ink pen or something like that. Something to get him off of. Like, we should not be dealing with all the stuff that happens to Drew. Is Drew gets attacked, Drew runs away. That's not good. I don't like this. I don't like this feud, man. I hate it. I hate this feud. I want it to end. I don't care whether Drew wins or not at this point. Everybody's like, Drew needs to win. Oh, you're going to kill Drew if he doesn't win. He's dead already. That's the thing you don't realize. He's been dead for weeks. When you took him off TV for nothing, and then literally just said, well, he's gone, and now Cody's gone too. This storyline is just the two of them, and both of them are gone. All right, so you killed the show. You didn't just kill one guy. You killed two guys, and then you killed the show too. It's ridiculous. And they keep doing this. Your show should be an ever-escalating event. It should be an exciting incident, then some stuff in the middle, then an exciting end. If the stuff in the middle isn't great, okay, that's just part of the story. But if the beginning is good, which the beginning of this storyline has not been good, and if the end of this storyline, which doesn't seem like it's ever going to happen, because Triple H storylines don't end, they just stop, this is not going to work out. People are not going to remember or really be excited about any of this stuff if you don't have a consistent story with escalating stakes and things mattering. It's not just a matter of Drew should get a title shot because Drew earned it or because Cody pushed him into it. Drew should have to put something on the table. It should be, title versus hair, title versus career, or if Drew loses, he's got to leave SmackDown. If Drew loses, he can't never challenge for the title for one full year, or something like that, in order to raise the stakes so that people will legitimately be like, oh shit, Drew is in a must-win situation. They don't do stuff like that anymore. They don't even think about that kind of shit anymore. They'll probably put him in some kind of garbage match where they can hit each other with kendo sticks, and then Cody will win. Drew will disappear for 3 weeks, come back, be in a mid-card feud, and by that time, it'll be time for the Royal Rumble. So then he'll be one of the top guys for the Royal Rumble again, and he's going to lose that too. So this doesn't engender excitement into anybody at this point. The one thing I haven't talked about is because of the spoilers, I saved it for the very near the end of the video. DIY bored everybody to death, losing to Ilya Dragunov and Carmelo Hayes. Now, on the TV taping, spoilers, if you don't want this, you should have been spoiled by now anyway. I'm sorry. You should have been spoiled by now if you're on social media of any kind. If you have not been spoiled, then just turn the video off now. But for those of you who have already been spoiled, Carmelo Hayes won the United States Championship in a taped episode of SmackDown. Now, for me, I'm not excited about this. I'm not happy about it. One, it's on a pre-taped episode of SmackDown, which means, again, the spoilers are everywhere. There's no excitement to it. Now, they did it because the people complained. But now it also tells me that there was no plan for Ilya Dragunov, because Dragunov just held the belt until it was time to give it to somebody else, which is exactly the same thing that they did with Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn just had the belt. He was holding it, and then he drops it to Ilya, who was just holding it, and then he dropped it to Carmelo Hayes. It was like, what? For starters, why is this 3 baby faces in a row? Where are the fucking heels at? Why are there no heels? Where's your heels? Your baby faces don't get over by beating other baby faces. They get over by beating heels. Why not have somebody fuck Ilya Dragunov out of this title, steal it, and then Carmelo Hayes and Ilya are chasing both are chasing this guy, And which, at this point of the storyline, it would have to be Tommaso Ciampa. But I don't like that idea. I don't fuck Ciampa, okay? But it had to be somebody. Could have picked somebody. The Miz. I don't know. Whatever. And then had Carmelo chase that guy for the title. That way, when he beat somebody, he beat a heel who the crowd doesn't like. And therefore, yay! Instead of, we like Ilya, but we like this guy too. Whoever wins is respect. And that's what it was. Ilya lost. He was shaking hands with Carmelo Hayes, and that was it. I was like, this is disgusting. What happened to the game I love? Why isn't Ilya Dragunov trying to gouge his eyes out, trying to kill him, or something? Like, why did we do it this way? And part of that is Triple H just wanted some of that heat off of him for the John Cena finish. Here's what you want. You wanted this the whole time. Christmas Miracle. Another Christmas Miracle. The Thea Hale Christmas Miracle was a complete accident. This one is completely planned. Here's the Christmas Miracle, which I know is unplanned because, well, I guess technically Carmelo's been chasing this belt for a while, but he hasn't gotten any closer to it. But this is a really dumb thing to do. It's dumb in my perspective. It's dumb. Is it great that Carmelo Hayes is the champion? Sure. But what do you do with him now? He's going to do open challenges. Oh, so the fourth person in a row to do open challenges for the United States title with no storyline whatsoever. Oh, they're going to bring in Trick Williams. Oh, okay. And they're going to do Carmelo and Trick. Okay. That might have some excitement to it, but are we going to give Trick time to get over? Or are we going to fast track him into a spot where he's just doing jobs immediately? Or do we do the funniest thing in the world where we have Trick beat Carmelo for the United States title almost immediately and then force Carmelo to chase Trick? Which might actually be the best way to do this thing. Because Trick can get over as a heel, no problem. Because Trick has a way of playing with the audience. He has a way of interacting with the audience. And he interacts with the audience during his matches. So he can get over as a heel, no problem. He'll probably end up being the babyface by the end of it because he is that good at what he does. But that's the booking. The booking has been, people like matches. So we're going to go out and have a bunch of matches. Sami Zayn challenges various people to matches. And then the same people that Sami Zayn beat are the same people that Dragunov beat. The same people. Phoenix, Ciampa, Gargano, Fraxium, and individually, maybe somebody else. I think Aleister Black, might have been beat by both of them. Like, nope, nothing special happens in this whole thing. It goes to show how weak the mid card is, how terribly boring the mid card is. The mid card is essentially four people: Aleister Black, Damian Priest, Ilya Dragunov, and Carmelo Hayes. The Miz is not featured every week. Phoenix, who knows? Nakamura, forget about it. Like this, and we're surprised that these people aren't over. It was like it was a couple of weeks ago, and I'm gonna close on this because I'm gonna wrap everything up in a nice little bow. Where Dave Meltzer was talking about how Phoenix made a mistake going to WWE because Phoenix doesn't get the reaction that Penta gets. Phoenix doesn't win as much as Penta does. He's not given time to wrestle like Penta is. And I say, look, the major difference is what I said earlier. People want to say zero miedo. That's what they want to say. As long as Penta can do that, it doesn't matter what the fuck else he does. As long as he does zero miedo, people are with it. We're with it. We're with you. What does Phoenix do? He runs on the ropes. Okay. Okay. I mean, it's the same thing. All you got to do is look at who interacts with the audience and who doesn't. Who does the audience care about and why don't they care? It's not like Phoenix, Penta's English is much better than Phoenix's. Both English is pretty choppy. But Penta has a gimmick and he has charisma. He can interact with the audience. Therefore, if his match is 4 minutes, who cares? They just got to do the Zero Miedo. They got to see him. He got to do a little dance. And that's it. That's what they came to see. It doesn't matter if his match is 45 minutes or 10 minutes or 6 minutes. When it's Phoenix and they don't have a call and response or anything like that, it matters a lot more. That's the difference between people who are over and people who are not over. But also, this show sucks regardless. They could book everybody better, and they don't. Even the main event guys are booked like shit. I hate SmackDown. I hate this show.